Welcome back to day one of Stareable Fest 2020. Today we're here for the Q&A talkback for block 2 of our long-form comedy category. My name is Ajay Kishore. I'm the founder and CEO of Stareable. Stareable Fest is the premier annual indie TV and web series festival in the US and the new home for digital creative talent. We honor the year's best content and provide a space for the next generation of creators to connect with industry executives, grow their network, learn new skills, and build community. Today, we're welcoming the creators of 4 incredible shows. First, we'd like to thank our festival sponsors, including Dell Technologies, AMC Networks, Shutterstock, and Adorama. If this is your first event with us, which it probably is, just a few notes about interacting on the platform. You can click the TV icon on the lower left of your screen to open the virtual screening room to watch any of our official selections on demand. You can click on anyone in the audience to start a private video chat with them. We won't be able to hear you up on stage. On the bottom toolbar, far left side, you'll see a lock icon. When it's unlocked, you are available to have video chats with anyone. When it's locked, people cannot start chatting with you. If you haven't already, please allow your browser to enable your camera and your microphone. Click the gear icon in the top right corner and change the settings to enable your camera and mic. Most importantly, we'll be taking your questions and comments later in the session, so please participate. Use the hand icon to raise your hand if you have a question and would like to come up on stage with us. Or if you'd like to just submit a question on screen, click the question mark bubble and type it to us. Now, I'd like to welcome our guests. Anit Tatintsyan, co-writer, co-producer, actor, pre-mortem. Danny Simonzad, director, co-writer, co-producer, pre-mortem. Patrick Shay, co-writer, co-producer, actor, entitled. And Tom Ciaccio, writer, producer, Load, The New Adventures of Ultimate Man's Ex-Girlfriend. Welcome all.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
So first I'd like to start with each of you introducing yourselves, the series you're representing today, your role on the project, and where you're based. And so we'll go in reverse order. Tom, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Tom Ciaccio, as he said, the writer and creator of Load, The New Adventures of Ultimate Man's Ex-Girlfriend.
Tom, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, let's start with Patrick.
So my name's Patrick Shay. I'm the co-creator of the entitled TV series. Sorry, what were the next couple things?
Introduce yourself, the series you're representing today, your role on the project, and where you're based.
Sure, I'm based in New York, Manhattan, New York, and we started shooting entitled in the summer of 2019. It was a really, really long process that we finished over the course of a year of shooting. It's about basically a family who is left an inheritance far beyond their expected means after the sudden death of their very pessimistic father, as they begin to dig through the secrecies of his double life after he passes away. It's a serial dramedy that right now we have essentially 4 10-minute episodes or 2 30s around that, or 2 25s around there.
Awesome. Thank you. Danny, let's go with you.
Hi, my name is Danny Simonzad. I am the producer, director, and co-writer of Pre-Mortem, and I'm located in Burbank, California.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Ani?
Hi, I'm Anit Tatintsyan. I'm the co-creator and actor of Pre-Mortem, and I am located in Glendale, California.
Awesome. Were we able to, I may have screwed up the handoff with Tom before. Were we able to bring him up on stage?
Hey, Tom.
Hello.
There we go. Sorry about that before.
No problem. Can we hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm Tom Ciaccio, the writer and creator of Load, The New Adventures of Ultimate Man's Ex-Girlfriend. And our series is a very adult romantic comedy about what it's like to break up with a superhero.
So the first question is going to be for everyone, and I'll have you all go in turns. Something I'm always fascinated by: what was the inspiration for the series? Where did the idea come from? Tom, let's start with you.
I'm a really big comic book nerd, so I have been really excited to see film and television really embrace the genre in the last 10 years. But I do sort of miss the attention that a lot of the supporting characters tend to get in comic books, particularly superheroes' girlfriends, sidekicks, those kinds of characters that we're not really seeing in the films. So I was like, what would happen if we were to build a show around a superhero's girlfriend's point of view? And then I also was sort of interested in making a very dark romantic comedy along the lines of stuff like You're the Worst or Catastrophe that really sort of gets into how messy and ugly relationships can be.
Danny and Ani?
I'll let Ani handle this one.
Danny and I were inspired by, we had similar political and cultural commentary that we were doing. And so we were really interested in making something that both included this idea of like skit-like comedy and cultural commentary. And so that's how Premortem was born.
Can we bring Patrick back up on stage? Patrick, what was the inspiration for your show?
So myself and the two other co-creators, we began not hitting dead ends, but we had done a good amount of short films and submitting to a lot of film festivals. And we were trying to take the next step. We weren't quite ready for the feature, more so monetarily. So we kind of bridged the gap, and we were talking about a comedy web series. We had also done a lot of darker dramas at the time. So we wanted to do something more in the comedy realm, web series-esque. So we discussed doing a TV pilot and or web series. And we developed it. We basically started talking about writing around our means and our resources, like in regards to locations, and a lot of the locations that we use in the film, we had at our disposal. So it helped keep costs down. And we just wanted to develop something funny that kind of falls in line with, it's almost like Shameless meets Arrested Development in some way. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you for that. So just a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions, you can click the hand button and we can bring you up on stage, or the question mark bubble, you can submit a question and we'll read to the creators. So Patrick, Entitled has this feel of very dark comedy, very funny moments between the family, but also these like very, very dark plot points around infidelity and the father's death. How did you approach navigating those? You mentioned a couple reference points, but maybe you can talk about how you like built it out and balanced the process.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of different directions you can go in with a comedy. You could go more in the punchline direction in your writing, or go more situational in the dark comedy realm. And I think what we wanted for Entitled was, we really discussed how can we keep the drama up, and approach it more in a serial dramedy kind of way, but also mix in that situational comedy with a few punchlines here and there. We never saw it as something that's like ultra laugh out loud punchline funny, but more of a situational type humor with a lot of open-ended dramatic dynamics that kind of tailor towards that that serial aspect of wanting to see more, wanting to see the next episode.
Got it. Tom, for your show, it kind of reminded me of Wicked, in that it took this classic narrative and transposed it so that you're seeing it from this other perspective. And I thought what was particularly clever about it is it allows you to straddle a couple different themes superhero certainly, but also journalism, but also romance. You mentioned that you're a superhero nerd. Do you, or maybe that wasn't your word, but how did you think about like balancing those? Was there something that, you know, started out as a bigger plot point early on as you worked on the project and became less so as you went on?
Originally, it was not, the first draft of it was not super serialized. A lot of it was sort of like this broad idea of what's it like to break up with America's favorite superhero, and how would that be sort of funny and uncomfortable transition into normal life, or could you have a normal life after that? And then sort of through many drafts, like the through line of journalism and sort of the through line of her uncovering something that is like both sinister and supervillainy sort of came through as we were sort of binding the different tracks of the story together. And I think sort of for me, in terms of making it all work, is like we wanted to just sort of make sure that all of the stories, whether they're superhero stories, romantic stories, or work stories, just felt real. And sometimes the real stuff is funny, and sometimes the real stuff is uncomfortable. But most of the team that I worked with comes from a nonfiction and doc background. So everyone was very concerned with just sort of making sure that you believed the world existed, you believed the job, you believed the relationship. And that's sort of what we put into the shooting and the performances.
Got it. Danny, and maybe we can bring Anit back up on stage too. I'll ask you this question. I really love this idea of a millennial male person. I think, you know, it reminded me of the guy in High Maintenance, and that, you know, similar to a We Delivery person, that allows you to put the central character in all sorts of different situations over the course of their day. And it's also very unexplored. I've never seen a millennial male person before. Where did that idea come from?
Newman? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I can let Danny continue, but I think that I really wanted her to be a public servant,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted her to be like on the ground, and I mean, unless she's a cop, I think that being a public servant being a male person would be, but yeah.
We initially had her as a parking enforcer who
Right.
interacts with a very wealthy lady, but then we switched it up to a less, I said, aggressive, male person. We just felt like it would be, it would give us more interactions with different people that she runs into every day, you know. So I think it just opens up for more stories. That was part of the reason why we chose that. Got it.
Yeah. And it's clear in hearing you talk and a couple of the answers you've given, you know, this was definitely a collaboration. Is this your first project together? Have you worked on other things before?
We worked on a short film in 2014 called Artificial Sweetener. It basically about a very paranoid college student who goes to a coffee shop, and she thinks this guy he's reaching into his backpack. She thinks that he's gonna pull out a gun and shoot everybody. And that's the premise of the short film. Yeah, I don't know why we're laughing at that, but yeah, that's the premise. Oh, and then, you know, I own a TV commercial production company, and Ani was one of our copywriters. So we just synced up. It's just our ideas were very similar, so we decided to sit down and write some sketches. And then those sketches turned into a TV pilot.
Yeah.
Like everything is switching to TV. It's like, why do sketches when we could do a TV pilot?
Well, so that brings me to my next question, which is, you know, so where do these pilots live in the context of a longer season? Is this something that is already developed? Do you have ideas for where the story goes? Are you in the process of building those out now?
Sure. So when we made the TV pilot, it got us a meeting at 3 Arts. And then so that meeting we're like, oh man, this is serious. So let's flesh out the rest of the season. So that's what we did. We sat down with a lot of coffee and wine, and wrote. We outlined 10 episodes, so we know exactly where the arc is going, and we know, we added new characters, but we basically have a detailed outline of the rest of the season.
Super exciting. Patrick, what about you?
Yeah, so we've been talking with our agent recently, who we signed with. His name's Wamik Jawed from Bowery Media, and he's been shopping and titled around. And I mean, we're just like, so basically we submitted to Stareable 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes of our pilot. It's actually 45 minute, 45 to 48 minute pilot that really continues going. What's nice is we built it out in 4 acts, so it could be a standalone hour-long pilot, or it could be essentially 2 20 to 30 minute episodes. But it could also live in like a Quibi type format or Comedy Central web format, where we have the 4 like 10-minute acts almost that really do start and finish and end on cliffhangers in some respects. So so our goal is to kind of like take it and pitch it in all those possible directions as best we can. And we have continued writing. I mean, we probably have, I'd say about like 10 episodes written in the full story arc for our first season.
That's great. Tom, what about you?
We sort of, with the first set of episodes that we produced, actually very similar to, it sounds like what Entitled did, is like we wanted to tell a complete story that could either be shown in 4 short chunks or play as like a 30-minute proof of concept pilot. We have a bunch of stories that we want to tell, not just with Lo, but with the supporting cast, particularly the folks in her office that we introduce. So we have, a sort of version of telling more shorter stories like this, or, telling those same stories in a long form manner. I think because we're pretty focused on most of the grounded stuff happening, outside of the superhero stuff just happening sort of off screen. We're sort of prepared to scale up or scale down, mostly exploring the human stories happening on the ground.
So I think this is that idea of scaling up and down is something that's like very common with web series creators of, limited resources, unbridled creativity. I think oftentimes it's fun for creators to hear about, challenges that each other have faced. You want to talk us through like one challenge that you had with this project and maybe how you got past it?
I would say the hardest thing for us, or at least the thing that was like very new for me, because I have a pretty big background in doing like a lot of nonfiction and sketch. Like I'm pretty used to like producing very, very grounded, normal stuff. And I would say in terms of us needing a bigger scope of locations, that sort of required a bigger think for me, because really in order to accomplish everything we needed very specific locations. And then also, this is my first time working both with a combination of practical and digital special effects. And a lot of that was just trial and error, because what we wanted to do is like, we knew we couldn't shoot this guy flying like you would see him on a television show or in a movie, but we wanted you to believe a man could fly. And we were able to do that through a combination of digital effects and leaf blowers. And I mostly believe it when he pops up on screen, and that was sort of like the very different thing for us.
Got it. That's super creative. Leaf blowers. That's awesome. Patrick?
Boy, where to start? I mean, like, and obviously in production there's a million challenges and wrenches get thrown in left and right. But just to note a few, we had a very big cast, so we're dealing with like anywhere from 10 to 15 actors within some of these scenes, and it is considered low budget, so it's not like we shot this thing out in 14 straight days. It was overtime, it was across weekends, so scheduling just our actors alone and trying to get them the ones in which we needed for scheduling on any given day was really, really difficult, as well as shooting in the summer and rain, and a lot of the film shot outdoors. Like, it almost rained every single time we had outdoor shoots scheduled, so we would basically figure out ways to get some of those interior scenes shot on days in which it was raining, but also shooting on a boat in general, because you got to remember, like, there's other people out on the water. The boat, like, the tide will shift the boat, how much waves there are. It spins a lot, but then you have a whole crew. So we're shooting on like a different boat to get certain shots that we needed. It was a really difficult time shooting on the boat for sure.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I had not even considered what it would be like to introduce water to that whole production element. Danny and Ani, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, resources. I mean, we shot our pilot over the course of 2 years, was it, I think? Correct me if I'm wrong, Danny. But no, I mean, like, we had some shots that we couldn't get for a while. And I think, like, in terms of resources, it took us a long time to get it together. And that's definitely one of the most challenging parts of making anything is the material resources.
Yeah. I had to borrow money from my friend. I put some of my own money in there. The opening scene restaurant, I was just walking down the street. I'm like, hey, this looks nice. I just walked in. I'm like, can we shoot in here? They're like, okay. He's like, how much you want to pay? So I negotiated with him. He's like, can we provide the catering too? I'm like, sure. So we made a deal with them, and we had the opening restaurant scene. Yeah, I mean, when you're doing low budget, you have to ask for a lot of favors. You have to pay people really low wages, unfortunately, but it's fun. The entire process is fun.
Yeah, you have to call in all the favors.
You have to call in all the favors. Yeah, I still owe some favors, unfortunately.
I think that's a common theme among all creators, is like,
yes,
you're getting all your friends to show up to help with everything they can.
Yeah, so if the show doesn't get picked up and I'm floating face down in a river, don't be surprised.
I think we have a question from the audience, from Meredith. If we can pop it up on screen. I think this is for Danny and Ani.
Oh.
If you can talk a little bit about, like, well, what is that process of when someone asks you for you to go back and give us more? How does that actually go?
Currently, we don't have full script, but we have a pretty detailed outline. I would say.
There's a picture of me laying down on the floor in Ani's apartment, on the verge of tears. That's how we did the detailed outline for the show.
Danny's being dramatic.
Yes, I am.
And so,
yeah.
To take that a little bit further, is that kind of it's helpful, I think, to hear about the process of
Sure.
developing the show and shopping it. Is that kind of where it lives as you go out and pitch it to potential acquirers, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I would say having a full developed script necessarily when you're pitching is not necessary, especially because a lot is going to change. And to have your ideas not necessarily fully fleshed out it's actually better, because you have more room to be flexible.
Mm-hmm. That's why we kind of outlined it. But like we talked about the story arc of the different characters. We created new characters because we didn't know these characters existed when we did the pilot. We didn't, and then so we talked about what's going to happen to her. Are we going to bring in her ethnicity? Like, Ani and I are both Armenians, and we kind of live in between worlds of Armenia and America. It's like we talked about identity. We talked about her roommate Brad and what his goals are. You know, he wants to be a journalist. He's kind of like a social justice warrior, where Ani Alina, I keep mixing up their names because they're so similar. No, I'm just kidding. Because she doesn't really care. It's like, are we going to break down her character into, so we could see some kind of emotion from her towards the end of the season? So we got really detailed in that one.
I think that basically developing the world,
yeah,
you can't really do that in a pilot. And then what the outlines of the scripts allow you to do is to go deeper into the world and build the world.
Right. So we had a structure for each episode, but also the season has a structure as well. So we had that in mind and we also started thinking about season 2 and what we're going to do in season 2 and 3 and where the show is going to end. We also talked about that.
Very cool. Very exciting. I think last questions, 30 minutes flies by, is typically we ask, you know, where can people find your work, and what's coming next? We alluded to a little bit with existing projects, but are there other things that you're working on, and what are you excited for over the next, 6 to 12 months, including COVID ending? Danny and Ani, we'll start with you.
Oh, okay. So, I have a couple of feature films that I'm working on and a new idea for a TV show. And we're just going to put Pre-Mortem on YouTube. You could find the first scene on YouTube, but we're going to put the rest of I'm just going to break it up and I'm going to go back into the skit format and put it back on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm working on a feature. I'm thinking of writing more of a performance/play. So yeah, those are the two things that I'm thinking about right now.
Awesome. Patrick?
Yeah, so when we wrapped Entitled, we were trying to figure out what's next. So as far as Entitled's concerned, and kind of to piggyback off you guys, what you're just talking about in terms of scripts and stuff, we are still developing and writing beat sheets. But it's difficult because in the world of the web series and the filmmaking, it's really important, obviously, to build an audience. So it's almost like we do want to keep creating these, even if it's not picked up yet, because if you do continue to build an audience, that's more of a reason for it to get picked up. So, and you don't want it to go stale or go on hold for a couple of years. So we're developing plots in which that we can still continue to shoot beat sheet wise. And then we're also developing plots that are more gonna require development and money and the whole realm. So part of the plots we're making would require a ton of money and certain aspects to it, and others we could continue shooting based on the resources that we do have at our disposal. So beyond that, we just jumped into production on a new a short film set in the 1960s. It's about a man dealing with, he's gay in the 1960s and he has a wife and a kid, and it's basically like what it was like back then to deal with that, and coming out and or not coming out, and I don't really want to give away the ending, but it's a really feel-good piece, and we've done a lot of case studies with people who were gay in that time and have been together for 40, 50 years or have lost their loved one to the AIDS epidemic, and we've done sit-down interviews with them. We're doing that. It's going to be a part of the story as well, and the heart behind it.
Awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And Tom?
I'm working with my manager to find a permanent place for Lo, and we're hoping to be able to share that information soon. But the plan is to find a place for the existing episodes and work with a partner to make more episodes. And then as far as other work, I have a pilot and feature that I'm hoping to take out soon, but just writing as much as I can while we have to spend all this time inside. And then just my day job is working on Real Housewives. So I'm also making a lot of nonfiction stuff from quarantine, which has been quite a trip.
Awesome. Well, so that's the talkback. Thank you all for coming here, sharing your experiences and insights. Ani and Danny from Pre-Mortem, Patrick from Entitled, Tom from Low, The New Adventures of Ultimate Man's Ex-Girlfriend. Thank you all for coming in and participating, for joining us for the conversation. I'd like to thank again our festival sponsors, Dell Technologies, AMC Network, Shutterstock, and Adorama. Just a reminder, all of our official selections are available anytime on demand this week in our screening room, which you can get to with the TV in the little lower left of your screen. We will see you at our next session, which is 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern today. Our panel exploring what does the future of representation look like, which features agents from UTA, managers from Entitled. Should be an incredible conversation. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.